There's a pair of conversations that I'm tired of hearing, but I consistently do. And there's one personal statement that I just completely disagree with. And today's the day that I get it all off my chest. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. We'll wrap up today's episode the same way that we started, with 3 topics that have genuinely irritated me, and today is the day that I get it all off of my chest. The last thing will be the transfer portal, something we've discussed before, but I want to discuss in greater lengths today. Prior to that, this is a little bit personal, but the way that folks talk about A&T, Tennessee State, Hampton, it don't really sit right with me. I can't rock with that. But we kick it off with Celebration Bowl versus the FCS Playoffs. And as this episode continues, please know, I may sound passionate. It's the way that I speak. I think it may be the conviction, it may be the tone, it may be the pace. I'm not sure, but do know I'm not upset. These things are just, I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing this, right? The Celebration Bowl versus the FCS Playoffs is a conversation that I have heard a ridiculous amount of times. It'll come up every December, every November, maybe, right? They may start it a little bit early, but I'm tired of hearing it. The Celebration Bowl versus the FCS Playoffs. The number one reason I'm tired of hearing it is it's not changing. It's not changing. Give it up. If you win the MEAC, you are going to the Celebration Bowl. If you win the SWAC, you are going to the Celebration Bowl. I understand, and this is coming from somebody who, man, I think I used to fight the fight. I'm not sure. I'll let you determine if that's true or not, but I do know the stance I used to have was I was pro playoffs, man. Like, I was genuinely pro playoffs. And this has nothing to do with the financials. See, you can have the financial conversation. I understand that the money that comes with the Celebration Bowl instantly makes this a better deal. It makes it more lucrative. It makes it more logical because you're actually going to get dollars, and we need the funds. So I understand from that point of view what it is. But what I'm going to speak to you about today, it's not even on that type of time. The financial right there is something I had to grasp and be like, okay, I fully understand that side. So I'm speaking to you from a person who was on the side of the FCS playoffs because I want to compete against the best teams. I want to prove that I am the best in the country. That is still my mindset on what I want to do, but I understand it's a tired conversation. It's not happening. The Celebration Bowl has its value. The FCS playoffs has its value. But what I often hear is people talking down on the other to boost up the one that they prefer. And that's not necessary. I was an FCS playoff guy. Actually, I'm a Celebration Bowl guy now. As time is going on, it's just like, whatever. Because I found the way around it. If you really want to prove you're the best, or at least one of the best, or at least get some national recognition on your talent, then I would say schedule some FCS opponents and out of conference. Don't go over here scheduling Virginia Lynchburg. Don't be scheduling Virginia Lynchburg. Don't be scheduling D2s. If you really feel this way, and I understand that the fans who maybe talk about this are not the ones who are doing the scheduling. So maybe I'm speaking to 2 different demographics there. I can acknowledge it. But I would say clamor for this. If you're the fan, clamor for you to schedule some FCS opponents. Go play SFA. I've seen Alcorn do it, right? Like, I've seen North Carolina Central. I've seen them schedule multiple CAA opponents. I've seen this, and I understand technically there's less opponents in the MEAC than there are in the SWAC. So there's more room for you to be able to schedule a money game, maybe schedule a D2 game, schedule an FCS opponent, maybe 2. They have less conference games, so there's more flexibility for a MEAC opponent or a MEAC team member, conference member, right? So I get that. I acknowledge it. I'm not ignorant of that fact. But if you're the SWAC, you can make it a priority. If you're in the SWAC, you can make it a priority that we want to play a tough FCS team. Maybe you still get a money game. You can play a money game, an FCS opponent, and a D2 opponent. You could easily do that if you wanted to. And not everybody wants to. But if we're talking about the FCS playoffs and playing certain people, then I believe that there is a way around it without actually going to the FCS playoffs, because guess what? It's not an option. And because it's not an option, it feels like a redundant talking point. And it's a conversation in which the talking points never grow. People don't seem to change sides. We just keep having the same conversation over and over. Hey, man, the Celebration Bowl is important because it's ours. It's ours. It's ours. It's ours. I'm tired of hearing that it's ours. I understand it. Like, I'm with you. But that don't mean I want to keep hearing it every year on repeat. I don't. I'm tired of this conversation. The FCS playoffs. Well, you understand, we got to get the respect. We got to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, well, if the MEAC opponent or the SWAC championship game moved up, it's not happening. The schedule that you want, not happening. It's not. And that's the real base of this one. Now, every topic that I'm going to talk about is not because it's not happening. This one is just a little bit redundant to me because nothing's changing. Nobody changes their opinion. No one changes the way that they phrase their opinion. Everybody understands that the actual event is not changing. The Celebration Bowl is very valuable. It brings you money. It brings an HBCU champion. It is ours. Like, all of those things should be valued. And if you don't value them at all, I question how big into the space you are. Honestly, from what I've seen. I'm not saying you have to value it more than the FCS playoffs, but this is a valuable thing. Now, when we talk about the FCS playoffs, I get the clamoring for proving that I'm one of the best in the nation. I genuinely do. I want to play the best competition. And I understand that doesn't happen on a weekly basis, right? Because you see the disparity within the conference. So going against a CAA opponent should do well for you. Just do it in the regular season. That's it. You'll get your respect. I can guarantee you, North Carolina Central, the Celebration Bowl year, they had their respect because they performed against other teams. The narrative that you can't do it doesn't have to be broken in a specific venue. It doesn't have to be broken in the FCS playoffs. If you play a FCS opponent, a decent level FCS opponent during the regular season every year for 5 years, and you win 4 of the 5, win 3 of the 5, that conversation starts to shift around you. None of those games had to be in the FCS playoffs, though. So I'm just kind of tired of hearing it. Let's not act like both of these events don't have their value. Now, as you continue pushing forward, this one is a tad bit personal for me. People have been excluding North Carolina A&T, Tennessee State, and Hampton in certain conversations that they shouldn't be. And I want to go through the whole scope of these 3 teams not being in HBCU conferences as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors, and eBay Motors is the best place for your ride or die, the one that has never let you down, so you should not let the car down either. I don't know if you call your car a he, if you call your car a she, I don't know. I call my car a she, right? So I'm never going to let her down. That's my ride or die, always been by my side. So if I want to make sure that I take care of my vehicle, I'm going to go to ebaymotors.com because they have over 120 million parts. So you know that they'll have the part for your car that you need. The only thing that you need to do is put your car in the My Garage section, because that way you can make sure that you're getting a part that is appropriate for your car. If it doesn't fit, you can get your money back guaranteed. That's how confident eBay Motors is that it will fit for you. So whether you want to get style, whether you want to get function, doesn't matter if you need to replace the carbonator, or if you need to replace, or if you just want to get some LED lights, doesn't matter. Alternator, LED lights, same thing. Go ahead and go to ebaymotors.com. So go ahead and go to ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Hey, for your second listen, y'all already know where to go. Locked On Sports Today, the first of its kind. That means no one else has done it before us, but we're used to this at Locked On. First of its kind, 24/7, all day, every day, live sports network on YouTube. So no matter what time of day it is, you can catch a new program on Locked On Sports Today. Now, what's the name of my show? What's the name of my show? Is it Locked On MEAC? Is it Locked On SWAC? Is it Locked On CIAA? Is it Locked On SIAC? Is it Locked On a specific HBCU? No, it's Locked On HBCU, in which I cover all HBCUs. I know I said that I wouldn't be irritated. I wouldn't be upset. This one, I'm a little bit more irritated than most because I'm passionate. I'm a little bit more passionate about this one. These other two, I'm a little bit irritated, but this one, I'm a little bit more passionate about. I've seen people. Let me not even do that. Let me not even do the miscellaneous. I've seen a specific person. I don't remember the name because I'm not out here gunning for people, but they've left a comment and tried to get me to not talk about North Carolina A&T. It's not happening. If you feel this way, it's not happening. And I'm sorry to whoever said it, man. Look, listen, trust, I love you. We just don't agree on this one. We don't see eye to eye. I hope that you're an everydayer. I hope that you're still here. But I'm not abandoning my coverage of North Carolina A&T. I understand the consequences that come with A&T, Tennessee State, and Hampton not being in an HBCU conference. The coverage will lessen 100%. Even on here, it lessens. But I'm not going to abandon them because this is not Locked On MEAC. This is not Locked On SWAC. It's Locked On HBCUs. And last time I checked, North Carolina A&T, historically black college university. Same with Tennessee State. Same with Hampton. The last I checked, you didn't abandon your HBCU status simply because you left an HBCU conference. That's the last time I checked. If anybody else has some new news, if somebody else has an updated terms and conditions that I need to read and go through so that y'all can tell me that all of a sudden they not an HBCU, then please. Because to me, if you don't want to cover them or you don't want to talk about them, that's fine. But to come here and tell me I shouldn't talk about them because they not what? Are we serious right now? That's ridiculous. To me, that's ridiculous, right? So the impact of Tennessee State being in the Big South OVC, the impact of Hampton and North Carolina A&T being in the CAA is that you won't have as many HBCU games. You won't have as many HBCU games, which means you're not going to have as much coverage from HBCU media because we're focusing on the SWAC and the MEAC because they're facing each other. Or the MEAC is facing the MEAC, the SWAC is facing the SWAC, right? But they're facing each other. You're facing HBCUs on a consistent basis. And trust me, an HBCU versus HBCU matchup is going to receive more recognition and more coverage and more anticipation than an HBCU versus PWI matchup 8 out of 10 times. The only other exceptions are, for example, North Carolina Central went against Richmond. I think that was a big deal, right? They went against Campbell. That was a big deal. Those games receive a lot of attention. And I'm pretty sure I made one of those the game of the week that week. See, that's a little bit different. That's a little bit different. That's an exception. That is not the rule. In North Carolina A&T, they probably understand that. I don't think that they're dumb. Pretty smart people go to that school. Hampton, pretty smart people go to that school. Tennessee State, pretty smart people go to that school. I think that they understand that there are repercussions from not being in an HBCU conference. But one of those repercussions is not being abandoned by all HBCU coverage. Come on. You know what this kind of reminds me of? And I'm going to hit this and I'm going to move on from it real quick. But this reminds me of, and follow me, how I hear some of us black folks, talk about mixed folks, right? Mixed people. You take two people, both mixed, same pigment, look exactly the same. One successful, one not successful. And I've heard this repeatedly. The successful person, they get accepted. The unsuccessful person, they ain't really black. That's what this sometimes feels like. Because I can guarantee you, if North Carolina A&T or Hampton or Tennessee State wins their conference, it's HBCU pride all over again. That's BS. You can't take it all. Like you got to take it all. You can't take half of it. You can't take the successes and say that's HBCU love then. But when they not there, why are we even talking about them? They not. We're not rocking with that. I'm gonna cover Kenji Christian, right? Like I'm gonna cover Eddie George. I'm gonna cover Draylon Ellis. Like I'm going to cover these people. I'm gonna cover Elijah Burris. I'm gonna cover these players when they do well. I'm going to talk about them. When they do bad, I'm going to talk about them. I spent all of, I guess 2 years ago at this, right, 2 seasons ago, the 2022 season, I spent this whole time talking about Bashul Tootin in the run that he was going on through the Big South. If I wasn't covering North Carolina A&T, or if North Carolina A&T wasn't the HBCU, I'll tell you this, those things wouldn't have been very successful on my channel. People love when I was talking about Bashul Tootin. And you know what? He did so well, and I continued it up. I'm not here to join the bandwagon when they're doing successful. They're an HBCU, therefore they deserve my coverage. Thank you, and welcome. What they say? Thank you for attending my TED Talk. That's how I feel, man. That's how I feel. But let me know if y'all feel the same way. Let me know if y'all feel the same way. I understand the repercussions of it. I understand the consequences. Do not come on and be like, well, they have to deal with some of the, they made their bed. They did make their bed. But you know what? They're still an HBCU. So don't tell me that they're not deserving of my coverage. And I'll say that everybody else, they deserve your coverage too. But I'm not going to police how you cover, but don't police how I. All right. Now, with that being said, let's move on to something that has also been a redundant conversation, but I've addressed this one before. Let's see if I can address it with some hopefully new talking points on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, and that is the transfer portal. As wrapping up today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we've broken down the Celebration Bowl versus the FCS Playoffs. We've broken down, excluding North Carolina A&T, Hampton, and Tennessee State from all conversations. Not some, but all conversations. We broke down 2 of the things that I'm really tired of hearing about. The second one had me a little bit more irritated than the first. I just don't want to hear the first conversation no more because it's redundant. But this one right here is equally as redundant as the Celebration Bowl conversation. But I also think that people take a terrible approach to it. And that is the attitude towards the transfer portal. This was exciting. I don't know if I have anything else that just gets on my nerves. Let me know what gets on your nerves. Maybe I'll do this again. This was fun. I'm enjoying this one. All right. This is perfect offseason coverage. I'm tired of the way that y'all talk about the transfer portal. And I'm tired of hearing about the transfer portal, specifically the way that y'all do. Because when people talk about the transfer portal, you would think nothing good ever comes from it. If you are a North Carolina Central fan, I'm not talking to you. Please continue listening. Don't click me off now, but I'm not talking to you. If somebody was like, hey, man, I hate the transfer portal, I'm a North Carolina Central fan, I'd say, you know what? I understand. I get it. You know why? North Carolina Central is the only school that I can think of off the top of my head that prides itself in going and get high school talent. North Carolina Central is the only school I can think about that proudly promotes that they go and get high school talent rather than going to the transfer portal. They go a little bit to the portal. I see people go to the portal all the time. So if you ain't a North Carolina Central fan, I want to hear this. It's all so bad. Because, I see people get as much as they give when it comes to the portal. I see star players come over from the portal. I see star players leaving the portal. If you're North Carolina Central, yeah, I do think that you should be mad about Khalil Baker. Matter of fact, everybody should be mad when they lose a star player. But understand this. The transfer portal is not set up for us to succeed, but it's not a complete loss. It is set up for bigger schools to win. It is. Alabama is meant to win the transfer portal more than Alabama A&M. Just is. Even Delaware is going to win more than Delaware State. The University of North Carolina is going to win more than A&T and Central combined. That's the way that this is set up. It is set up so that the rich get richer. It is set up so that players have a lot of freedom. But with that freedom, you have to understand that they're going to choose what they feel like is the best decision for them. Please stop criticizing that as well. That's another thing I don't like. That's a subsection. Let me go on a little tangent real quick, and then we'll double back over to this side. When you see a player go out in the transfer portal, and I've said this before, but I want to say it again emphatically, stop saying they're not going to play. Would you rather not play there or play at North Carolina? Stop. That is everything around the transfer portal from the HBCU perspective is so pessimistic. It's so pessimistic. Do you believe in that player? Do you? I'll use Bashul Tootin because I just used him and he went to Virginia Tech. I know maybe not the best one because I don't think he had a great season. Elijah Hawkins. I've been doing all this for football. Let's use Elijah Hawkins. Even though I don't hear basketball, people really complain about the transfer portal at all. Elijah Hawkins is a great example. You think people would be like, hey, Elijah Hawkins, do you want to be a star at Howard or you want to go ride the bench at, I think he went to Minnesota or somewhere, right? Like, do you want to go ride the bench at this big school? That attitude immediately says that your talent is not good enough to succeed at a level higher than HBCUs. So what does that really say? What are you actually saying about the player? You may not be intending it. Purposeful or accidental, that is what you're saying. When you come on and you tell me that a player, or you address a player and say, hey, would you rather be a star here or a starter here or go ride the bench over there? Why do you assume they're going to ride the bench? Why do you assume that? Is it not talent-based? If it's not, please tell me it's not talent-based and we can have a different conversation. I'm open to hearing something else. But when I hear people say that, I immediately believe that they don't think that player is talented enough to compete at the next school. That's me. That's me. Maybe that ain't you, but that's me. So now let's move back to the transfer portal that I wanted to talk about. Within the portal, because I went on this tangent. Now my mind is a little bit lost. So where were we? Not player, but just how you talk about it. Jeremy Musa. Like Jeremy Musa is a player who came in from a transfer. Right, like we've had too many players who have succeeded at HBCUs who came in through the transfer portal for us to sit here and act like the transfer portal only takes away talent. It's not meant for us to win. We are going to lose our stars a lot of times, and I'm sorry that that's the case. I really am. I just seen that with FAMU. I'm really sorry that that is the case, but it is. And okay, let me say it this way. You lose stars via the transfer portal, but how many stars have we seen gained through the transfer portal? How many times have we seen a big school prospect come into an HBCU and end up doing very well for their university? I've seen it enough times to not sit here and cry. I'm sorry that we got to lose some of the top talent. I really am. And I understand that there's bad that comes with it. But same way with the Celebration Bowl. Same way with the excluding non-HBCU conference HBCUs, excluding all of that. Dog, I get how the game goes. And how the game goes is you're going to have some bad. I can acknowledge the bad without acting like it's all bad. And that's what I beg for you to do when it comes to the Celebration Bowl versus the FCS playoffs. That's what I beg you to do when it comes to the transfer portal and the way that you speak about it. Understand that you're getting a lot of high-level talent for you that's coming in, even though you're losing a lot of high-level talent as well. If you only focus on the bad, nothing's ever going to seem good enough. I'm not trying to sound prophetic. I'm not trying to sound deep or anything. That's just how I feel. If you continue to focus on all the bad that comes from certain situations, you will consistently ignore the good. So, of course, you're going to feel like it's all bad. It's all about perspective and frame of reference. So, this was fun. This was fun. And we closed out the week. I'm recording this early because I'm going out of town, but I'll be back on Monday. This is very fun. And I may ask if y'all want to do this again. I need to put in the comments, do y'all want to do this again? Because this was good for me. This was therapeutic. Let's go ahead and leave. Nice session. Send me your copay, or maybe I'll send you mine. I'm not sure. But what I do know and what I am sure about is that I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. And we'll be back on Friday to talk about whatever happens over the weekend and really over the 5 days. I'm recording this Wednesday. This one's super early, just so y'all know. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.